Opinions expressed by the guests and contributors on Conklin Company are not necessarily those of 13 ABC. Now, Conklin Company continues with Take 3, commentary and analysis from our panel of political contributors.
Welcome back, everyone. Take 3 now. Ignacio Messina of the Toledo Blade. Let's get right to Mayor Collins in the first. Well, almost. We're getting to the end of the first 2 months.
That's
we
right.
talk about the first 100 days of a presidency, but we're getting to the end of the first 2 days of 2 months of the mayor's tenure here. So, order of business so far. The budget. Let's talk about the budget. $14.1 million from the CIP budget that he was critical of the previous mayor.
For years, Collins and also his fellow councilman, George Sorrento, who's now Collins' finance director, were critical of taking money out of the what we call the CIP budget, the capital improvement budget. And while city budgets are complicated, basically there are silos where you are meant to use this money for this purpose and this money for that purpose. And so voters approved letting the city take money out of the CIP budget and spend it on things like police officer salaries and firefighter salaries so that we wouldn't be in deficit.
Right.
So he was very critical of that, but yet when he released his budget, a revision of what Mike Bell had released, he kept the $14.1 million, borrowing from that fund to pay for these day-to-day operations.
Upon further review, said, well, we need the money.
Sure,
right?
Sure. He says, I don't want to do this. I don't like it. And I want to wean the city off of this, but it's just something that we have to do this year.
Okay, let's go to South Toledo, the mayor's former district.
Sure, something he still feels really strongly
Absolutely. And I think that it has become a hot button for so many Toledoans, talking specifically about the old Clarion Hotel.
Sure. Well, I mean, Mike Collins has said several times, if we lose that zip code, we will lose the city of Toledo. He used to say, well, we'll become Detroit, but he has stopped saying that. Basically, the Clarion Hotel is one of the largest blighted structures in that area, and there is a developer who wants to spend $3 million to build a store that sells, I think, patio furniture. But one of the stipulations is that the city must tear down the former Clarion Hotel.
And at what cost? $800,000?
It's going to cost about $800,000, but the city is adamant that will not be City of Toledo taxpayer money. It'll be state and federal grants that it's going to be used to tear down that building.
And some feel that could be impetus for another developer to come in and possibly pave the way, open the floodgates for the Southwick side.
I think the converse is true. They see that as an impediment to development in Southwick, which, as you know, has been for a long time. So once you get rid of that building, then people might be interested. But no one will be interested in developing Southwick with this huge blighted structure there.
Well, what I meant was this store comes in, this patio furniture store, and that could be the start.
Sure.
The start of something big, of course, in that bigger parcel of land.
Sure, and the developers will say development breeds development, so this $3 million investment into the area could be the first of many to come.
All right, let's move on to, it is an election year in many cases, midterms in Congress, but we're looking at locally the auditor's race. And already there's been controversy in the run for Lucas County auditor. In this case, Anita Lopez is going to run for re-election now, but was challenged within her own office. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now.
Well, she was challenged by a Republican who works for her. It looks like he will drop out unless he wants to quit his job or possibly be fired. State law says that he cannot run because he works for that office. The GOP will nominate someone to fill that seat and run against her. We don't know who that is yet. There was also a tense moment last week, in the middle of the week, where her petitions almost nearly did not get certified by the Board of Elections because the 2 Democrats on the Board of Elections had signed for her petitions.
How does this happen? I mean, this late in the game, where you have where the I's are not dotted, the T's are not crossed, and then you have, there is a scramble for things to come to fruition where she can be on the ballot and run for re-election.
Well, our reporter Tom Troy wrote about this in his blog. There were a lot of tense moments that day, a lot of talking back and forth whether or not she'd be allowed to. And it was the Republican John Steinbrück who challenged this. And ultimately they worked out a deal where the 2 Democrats would simply abstain on the single sheets of paper they had signed, but they could vote to certify the rest. So as a 4-member board, they had 4 votes to certify her, and she will in fact be on the ballot.
So as the world turns in Lucas County politics here, moving forward though, as we take a look here, will there be an able replacement or an able person to run against Anita Lopez for the auditor's job.
That's really going to be up to the GOP, the Republican Party. I mean, as you know, Councilman Rob Ludeman considered running against that.
And said no.
And said no. And the very next day, he announced it in the Blade, and the very next day said that he would not seek that. Partially probably because he had just, won re-election to City Council.
All right, stay tuned. Ignacio Messina, as always, thanks very much. We'll see you in the Blade Briefing on 13 ABC, I imagine sometime this week. And we'll see you all this week on 13 ABC Action News. Make it a great Sunday, everybody. Marching toward March. We'll see you later.